As you've noticed in the last 3 weeks, we're in the middle of our annual stewardship campaign, and the theme is grateful giving. And every week you've heard a story of people who have connected with God through this church. And today, it's my very great pleasure to introduce you to Quinn Nystrom Bobic, and she's going to share her story with you, and you're in for a treat. So let's welcome Quinn.
Good morning. I grew up in central Minnesota in a traditional Christian family where my great-grandfather had immigrated to the area from Sweden, like a lot of people up in the Brainerd Lakes area. We knew as kids that my mom's expectation and non-negotiables was that we would go to church on Sundays and Wednesdays. It was a church with very strict rules and expectations. My mom had to wear a floor-length skirt, a requirement to her weekly Bible studies. Someone got up and spoke of his conversion back to being a heterosexual at a Thanksgiving service, and people rejoiced. When I attended their new members class, they passed out contracts that we had to sign that we agreed to. No premarital sex, women couldn't be leaders and preach from the pulpit, and marriage is between a man and a woman only. That was just to become a member of the church. I would say I always had a personal relationship with Christ, but as I grew older, some things I saw at church or with Christians disheartened me. That wasn't the Jesus that I knew. I got married to Paul nearly 5 years ago during the height of the pandemic. Not only did I become a wife on that day, but I also became a stepmother to his two beautiful daughters, Lily and Sophie. I took that responsibility very seriously. When we bought our first home in St. Michael, I started looking for churches in our area. Paul grew up as a devout Catholic on the Iron Range. I, a Presbyterian. After trying a couple, we settled on one locally that marketed itself as great for kids, that it was okay not to be okay, and just to show up as you are. Our eldest was really struggling. She had experienced a lot in her young life. I was grateful when she came home and told me that she wanted to attend youth group. One night, she came home from youth group to tell me that the youth pastor had pulled her out and told her if she couldn't conform to their Christian identity, she would have to sit out of small group. That she would either have to stay in the restroom or the parking lot during that time. I won't say the words that went through my head as I am in a church, but to keep it PG, I was upset, I was hurt, and I was angry. And yes, I called a meeting immediately with the pastoral staff. This led me to send Pastor Steve, who I had first met at a different church nearly 15 years prior, a Facebook message asking if he knew of any inclusive churches in the Northwest Metro, not just in words or marketing materials, but in actions. He quickly sent back a message and said that if we were willing to make the drive to Wayzata, he had joined the pastoral staff at WCC. And to be honest, I drive 25 minutes for a $5 rotisserie chicken at Costco. So I thought I can certainly add an extra 5 minutes and get to church in Wayzata. And my husband loves the hot dog, even though they raised it to $1.25. Okay. I'll never forget our first Christmas Eve service at WCC. We were running late, but I was adamant that we all go. And when we arrived right here, the only seats that were still available were the wooden ones right in the front, where my husband, raised Catholic on the Iron Range, started making those eyes at me like, can we please go home now? When Pastor Steve got up right here and said, I know many of you here today who may have had traumatic or negative experiences with the church, but I'm standing in front of you today to say that Jesus loves you just as you are. As I looked at our daughter, I burst into tears. This was Jesus's inclusive love. We became members after, And no surprise to probably many of you, there was no contract, and yes, I am wearing pants today. During our time here, our eldest hit rock bottom. I felt helpless. She tried to take her life. I turned to the pastoral staff and the whole WCC community to help support me, but most importantly, to show and surround Lily with God's steadfast and unchanging love. We started showing up at anything and everything WCC. She and I volunteered at the rummage sale where Barb enveloped her in love, care, and attention and found her the perfect evening gown for some dance in the future. She started attending middle school ministries, and Ann Hunhoff took her out to lunch one-on-one and took an interest in her. She signed up to be a counselor for VBS and a helper at Music and Message with Miss Jody because, as Lily told me, Miss Jody really wants me there. All these people looked at her and said through actions and words, God made you in his perfect image. You are welcome at the table. You are one of his beloveds. Lily got confirmed here a couple of weeks ago. I gave her a necklace with the number 41 on it. In the Bible, 41 represents the start of a new day and the promise that you will enter your promised land if you don't give up. This is based on several events in the Bible that occurred on the 41st day. The rain stopped. After 40 days and 40 nights of rain, the rain stopped on the 41st day. Israel entered the promised land on the 41st day. After 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, a new generation entered the promised land. David slew Goliath. After 40 days of Goliath taunting Israel's army, David slew Goliath on the 41st day. God shows us to not give up, even when we are hopeless, that God is over our storm and we are his. One of my favorite theologians, Henry Nouwen, a Dutch Catholic priest, said, gratitude is the most fruitful way of deepening your consciousness that you are not an accident, but a divine choice. Every time we decide to be grateful, it will be easier to see new things for which we can be thankful. Gratitude begets gratitude, just as love begets love. I gratefully give to WCC because through words and actions, they showered our children with love and with the inclusive love of Jesus that they speak about. As Pastor Steve baptized our son Bo in August, he laid a hand on his forehead to make the sign of the cross and said, "You are a unique and unrepeatable miracle in God's eyes." And yes, I cried again. Gratitude begets gratitude. Love begets love. And thank you to every single person who gives to this church because you have given us a new life and new love and a place to belong. So thank you.